The End of Oz, Chapter 2. It took a long time to tell Madison the entire history of me and Oz. No surprise there, considering how much had happened. Just saying it out loud to someone who wasn't from Oz, who had no idea what passed for normal here, made me realize just how insane the last few months of my life had been. And talking about Oz made me realize how much I'd missed it. Back in Kansas, I'd resigned myself to never being able to return to Oz. I almost thought I might know what Dorothy felt like when she had gone back home, and why she wanted so badly to return to Oz. But that was where the similarity stopped. Dorothy was a killer, and I wasn't. Well, not unless I had to be. Madison tucked her long blonde hair beside her ears in a futile effort to keep it out of her face, but the breeze fluttered at the long strands, sending them flying behind her like streamers. I thought about plucking one of Oz's stars out of the sky to show it to her, but she was freaked out enough already. Oz's weirder wonders could wait. So you were in a prison and some magic dude just showed up, and then a witch appeared? Madison interrupted my revelry, impatiently waiting for me to finish my story. More like a dungeon. The witch was Mombi. I glanced over at Knox, wondering what he was feeling. I was almost certain Mombi was dead, killed by Glamora and the Gnome King as she tried to protect us. I had complicated feelings about the old witch. Half the time she felt more like my enemy than my friend, and despite all that we'd been through together, we'd never been close. Out of all the witches, she made it very clear that just because she was formerly wicked, she didn't consider herself good. She was gruff and rude, and sometimes her words hurt as much as the purple web she could spin and squeeze around you. But those same qualities made her possibly the fiercest fighter in the Order, so her loss was huge if we were going to right everything that had just gone wrong in Oz. More importantly, she'd raised Knox. If my feelings about her were tangled, his had to be a labyrinth. I moved on quickly to the rest of the story. In a strange way, it was a relief to talk to someone from the real world, my world, about what I'd been through. Knox understood so much about me, but he was from Oz. To him, learning magic and fighting monsters was just part of life. Being able to tell someone from Kansas what had happened in Oz felt totally different. And then I went back to the Emerald City to fight Dorothy, once and for all, I continued. But the wizard was there too, controlling Dorothy. He was crazy. He wanted to merge Oz and Kansas. He thought they were the same place. Madison snorted softly. Well, in a way they are the same place, I amended. Oz is kind of like... It's like another dimension, laid over the world that we know, if that makes sense. Kansas and Oz overlap, but he was going to destroy them both with his spell, and then his hold over Dorothy broke and she killed him, and suddenly I wasn't in Oz anymore. I was back in Kansas, stuck there with Gert and Mombi and Glamora with no way to get home. I stopped, aware of what I just said. Home. Was that how I thought of Oz now? What about my mom? And then you decided to go back to high school? Madison prompted, her voice skeptical. The witches thought Dorothy's original shoes were somewhere in Flat Hill, I explained. The ones that took her home the first time she came to Oz. The whole thing where you were trying to prove Dorothy was real, that was just a cover for you trying to find some enchanted doodad to get back here? Exactly, and I did find the shoes in the high school, just where the witches thought they'd be. The shoes brought us all back to Oz. Glinda was moving against the Order without Dorothy. We fought her and thought we'd defeated her, but actually she'd just taken over her twin sister's body. Are you serious? Madison asked in disbelief. I know, it sounds super weird, but I'm telling you, things work differently here. I told her about the final battle beneath the Emerald Palace, where I defeated Dorothy at last, but been unable to kill her. How Knox and I had left her there to die as the palace crumbled around us. Whoa, Madison said softly. That's pretty cold. Knox looked at her, his eyes narrowing. Are you listening to anything Amy's telling you about how evil Dorothy is? She tortured people to death, Madison. She murdered whole families, whole towns. Knox, it's okay, I said gently. It's just a lot to take in all at once. Remember, it took me a long time to get used to killing people, too, and I'm still not sure if it's a good thing I did. How did you know Dorothy was dead? Madison asked. If you just left her there. She looked pretty dead to me, Knox muttered. Wait a minute, Madison said, realizing what I'd just said. You've killed people? Like, not just by accident? Yeah, I said. I couldn't meet your eyes. You? Salvation. Madison stopped herself. You couldn't even punch me back a few months ago, and now you're like a superhero. A couple of months ago, I would have laughed at the idea of me being the key to saving Oz. It would have seemed to be the most ridiculous idea in the whole wide world. Or at least my world, which was as small as the trailer I grew up in. But time and distance and Oz had changed my mind. I knew now I had a role to play. Something bigger than that trailer, bigger than the girl with pink hair and no friends and a deadbeat mom on the other side of the universe or rainbow or whatever. And I knew, too, that I wasn't the girl who left anyone to fight without her. We couldn't turn the road around, but we would have to go back. Not exactly. Wow, she said. Okay, am I going to have to kill people? And you still haven't answered my question. How do I get home? How do I get back to my kid? No offense, but this place isn't really my style. She looked around again, and I peered over the side of the road. The landscape below us was completely unfamiliar. Sparse, leafless trees sprouted out of the hard, moonlit ground. The witches' wastelands, Knox said, in answer to my unspoken question. No one I know has been this close to the edge of Oz. Amy, Mad prompted. I don't need a geography lesson. I don't know how to tell her that's the questions she's asked were impossible to answer, so instead I settled for telling the last part of my story as if she hadn't asked. We thought we'd finally saved Oz when Dorothy died, I said. But when the Gnome King showed up, that's the guy who took over Assistant Principal Scranchion's body. How many villains are in this stupid world? Madison asked in disbelief. Tell me about it, Knox said. Everybody's wicked, I said. Here, I mean. Good means wicked, and wicked means good. Madison was staring at me as if I'd started speaking Sanskrit. Like I said, it's complicated, I amended. We don't know what the Gnome King wants exactly. He definitely wants these. I pointed to my feet where Dorothy's shoes, which had turned into sparkly combat boots that fit me perfectly, still glittered. And he wants to kill me, too? I don't think that was personal, Knox said. He wanted to get to Amy. He didn't care about you. Madison rolled her eyes. Fine, so I'm not special. Amy's the chosen one or whatever. Ames, I'm really starting to like you, but this story is crazy, and spoiler alert, whatever's going on here is not my problem. So why don't you send me back to Kansas with your little spells or whatever, and we can call it even. I'll tell your mom, well, I'll tell her whatever you want. I'll tell her you're coming home soon if you want me to, but I want to get back to my kid and my ex-boyfriend and my life. We can't, Knox said. Amy already told you. We don't know how. I know it's all a lot, I said. Madison sighed. So the only way for me to get home is to find out where this stupid road is carrying us, taking out the demonic dude who possessed Assistant Principal Scranchion, help you kill the Good Witch of the South, and figure out a spell that nobody knows yet? She asked. Basically, I said apologetically. Fine, sign me up, Madison said briskly. Do I get to learn magic too? You can't, Knox said. Oz's magic corrupts people from your world who use it. For some reason, Dorothy's shoes let me use magic again, I explained. But before I found them, things got bad. Madison huffed. I don't believe this crap. All right, fine. At least teach me how to use a knife or something. Sword, bow and arrow, battle axe. That's Lord of the Rings, I said. Different book. And only dwarves use those. You're such a freak, Madison said. Takes one to know one, I said. But we were both smiling. Look, Knox said suddenly, pointing over the edge of the deadly desert. We crowded next to him, staring down at the vista below us. Madison and I both gasped aloud. I'd assumed that the deadly desert was an empty, desolate wasteland. I'd been completely, totally wrong. At the far edge of the horizon, the sky was lightening with the coming dawn, and far below, the faint illumination hinted at the extraordinary place we were flying over. Huge dunes of multicolored sand stretched as far as I could see in either direction. Directly below us was a cobalt-blue wave of sand. The dune next to it was a crimson red, and the other one after that was a bright, saffron-tinted yellow.